Hello, everyone. I'm really glad you are here today. Take a slow breath. Let your thoughts slow down and give yourself a quiet moment to focus. Today, we are going to talk about something that is often misunderstood: the difference between winners and losers. But not the obvious difference. Not money, not status, not results, because those are outcomes. We are going to talk about something much deeper: the invisible difference. Because here's the truth. At the beginning, winners and losers look exactly the same. They have the same opportunities. They have access to the same information. They live in the same world. They hear the same advice, and yet, their lives end up completely different. Why? Let's begin with a simple situation. Two people decide to change their lives. They both watch the same video. They both feel motivated. They both say, "This is it. This time will be different." They both understand what they need to do. At that moment, there is no difference between them. They are equal. Same knowledge, same starting point, same intention. But then something small happens. Something almost invisible. The first person closes the video. He thinks about it. He reflects. He analyzes. He tells himself, "I'll start tomorrow. It's better to plan properly. I want to do it the right way." Now imagine the second person. She closes the video too. She also feels uncertainty. She also has doubts. But instead of thinking longer, she does something. She starts, not perfectly, not completely, but immediately. At that moment, a difference is created, a very small one, almost unnoticeable. But that difference begins to grow. Now let's go deeper. Most people think success comes from big actions, big decisions, big moments. But that is not true. Success is built from small differences, repeated over time. Let's look at what happens next. The first person continues to think. He gathers more information. He watches more videos. He reads more. He prepares. But he does not act, because he is waiting for the perfect moment. The second person continues to act. She makes mistakes. She feels uncomfortable. She adjusts. She improves. Now something interesting happens. The first person begins to feel overwhelmed, because the more he learns, the more complicated everything seems. He sees more risks, more uncertainty, more reasons to wait. Now imagine the second person. She is not thinking about everything. She is focused on the next step. She learns by doing. And this is the first invisible difference: thinking versus acting. But here's something even more important. Both people believe they are doing the right thing. The first person believes he is being careful, responsible, smart. The second person knows she is not ready, but she acts anyway. And over time, this creates momentum. Now let's go deeper. Another invisible difference is how they interpret failure. Let's say both people try something, and both fail. The first person reacts emotionally. He feels discouraged. He thinks, "This is not for me. I'm not good at this." So he stops. Now imagine the second person. She also feels disappointment. She also feels frustration. But she asks a different question. What can I learn from this? How can I improve? And then she tries again. This is the second invisible difference: failure as identity versus failure as data. Now here's something critical. These differences are not visible in the beginning. You cannot see them from the outside, because both people still look the same. They are still at the starting point. But internally, everything is changing. One is building hesitation. The other is building momentum. And over time, these invisible patterns create visible results. Now think about your own life. Have you ever experienced this? You know what to do. You understand the steps, but you delay. You wait. You think more. Or maybe you tried something once and stopped when it didn't work. These moments matter because they are not random. They are patterns. And these patterns define your direction. Now let's take a step back. The difference between winners and losers is not talent. It is not intelligence. It is not luck. It is behavior. Specifically, the small behaviors that happen after intention. What do you do after you decide to change? Do you think more? Or do you act? Do you avoid failure? Or do you use it? These questions matter because they reveal something important. The difference is not what you know. It is what you do with what you know. And this difference is invisible at first, but not forever. Because over time, it becomes everything. Let's continue. Now that we understand the first difference, thinking versus acting, we need to go deeper. Because action alone is not enough. Many people act, many people try, but still, their results are very different. Why? The answer is in something more subtle, something more difficult to see. The way they use their time, and the way they respond to their emotions. Let's begin with time. Because time is the one thing everyone has an equal amount. 24 hours, every single day. No one has more, no one has less. But the outcome of those hours is completely different. Let's look at a simple situation. At the end of the day, two people sit down. They are both tired. They both worked. They both feel they deserve a break. The first person relaxes. He watches something. He scrolls. He consumes. Time passes. And before he realizes it, the day is over. Now imagine the second person. She is also tired. She also wants to rest. But she makes a small decision. She uses a small part of her time differently. Maybe she reads. Maybe she builds something. Maybe she learns a skill. Not for hours. Not perfectly. But consistently. At that moment, the difference is small. Almost invisible. But here is what most people don't realize. Time compounds, just like money, just like habits. A small difference today becomes a big difference over time. Now let's go deeper. The first person is not wrong. He is not lazy. He is doing what feels natural, what feels comfortable. But comfort does not create change. Now imagine this happening every day. Small consumption versus small investment. After a week, there is no difference. After a month, still not obvious. But after a year, everything begins to change. This is the second invisible difference. Consumption versus investment of time. Now let's explore something even deeper. Emotion. Because time decisions are driven by emotion. Let's look at a situation. Both people feel discomfort. Both people feel resistance. Both people feel tired. But they respond differently. The first person reacts immediately. He feels discomfort, so he escapes it. He distracts himself. He avoids. Now imagine the second person. She feels the same discomfort, but she pauses. She does not react immediately. She allows the feeling to exist, and then she chooses. This is a critical difference. Reaction versus response. Now here's something important. Most people believe they are making decisions logically, but in reality, they are reacting emotionally. Let's take another example. Failure. Both people fail at something. The first person feels frustrated. He feels embarrassed. So he stops. Because stopping removes the feeling. Now imagine the second person. She feels the same frustration, but she does not let that emotion decide. She stays. She continues. This creates resilience. And over time, this becomes a powerful advantage. Another powerful example is Angela Duckworth. She studied something called grit, the ability to continue despite difficulty. And she found that success was not about talent. It was about consistency under discomfort. Now think about that. Not talent, not intelligence, but how you respond when things are hard. This is the third invisible difference: emotion-driven behavior versus value-driven behavior. Now let's connect everything. Time, emotion, action. These are not separate. They are connected. How you feel affects what you do. What you do affects how you use your time. And how you use your time shapes your future. Now let's go even deeper. Decision speed. This is something rarely discussed, but it is critical. Let's look at a situation. An opportunity appears, something small, something uncertain. The first person hesitates. He thinks, he analyzes, he delays, and often the opportunity disappears. Now imagine the second person. She evaluates quickly, not carelessly, but efficiently. And then she decides. She moves. She adjusts later if needed. This creates momentum because speed matters. Not rushing, but not waiting too long. This is the fourth invisible difference: delayed decision versus decisive action. Now think about your own life. How do you use your time? How do you respond to discomfort? Do you react immediately, or do you pause and choose? Do you wait too long to decide, or do you move forward? These questions are not simple because they reveal patterns, and these patterns create your direction. Now imagine two paths. One is built on comfort, avoidance, delay. The other is built on action, awareness, consistency. At the beginning, they look the same, but over time, they lead to completely different lives. In the final part, we will go even deeper. We will explore the most important difference, the one that controls everything: identity. Because in the end, you don't rise to your goals. You fall to your identity. Now let's go deeper. We've talked about action. We've talked about time. We've talked about emotion. But all of these are connected to something even more powerful, something that controls everything: identity. Because in the end, you don't act randomly. You act based on who you believe you are. Let's start with something simple. Two people face the same situation, a difficult task, something uncomfortable, something uncertain. The first person thinks, "This is not for me. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not good at this." So he stops. Now imagine the second person. She faces the same situation. She feels the same discomfort, but her thought is different. "I'll figure it out. I can learn this. I'll get better." And so she continues. At that moment, everything changes. Not because of ability, not because of intelligence, but because of identity. This is the most important difference. Now let's go deeper. Identity is not something you are born with. It is something you build through repetition, through experience, through the stories you tell yourself. Let's look at a situation. One person fails at something. He immediately creates a story. "I'm not good at this. I always fail. This is just who I am." And that story becomes his identity. Now imagine another person. She fails too, but her story is different. "This is part of the process. I'm learning. I can improve." And that story becomes her identity. Same event, different meaning. different identity, different future. Now here's something even more important. Identity is self-reinforcing. Once you believe something about yourself, you begin to act in a way that confirms it. Let's take an example. If you believe, I'm not consistent, you will act inconsistently. And then that behavior proves your belief. Now imagine something different. You decide, I am someone who takes action. At first, it feels unnatural, uncomfortable, even false, but you act anyway. And over time, your actions begin to match your identity. And then your identity becomes real. Another powerful idea comes from Carol Dweck. She introduced the concept of growth mindset, the belief that your abilities can improve. And this belief alone changes behavior. Because if you believe you can grow, you continue. If you believe you cannot, you stop. Now let's connect everything. The invisible differences we talked about: action, time, emotion, decision. All of these come from identity. They are not separate. They are expressions of who you believe you are. Now think about your own life. What do you believe about yourself? Do you see yourself as someone who acts or someone who waits? Do you see yourself as someone who learns or someone who avoids failure? These beliefs matter because they are not just thoughts. They are instructions. They guide your behavior. They shape your decisions. And over time, they create your life. Now here's the final truth. Winners and losers are not born different. They become different through small decisions, through repeated actions, through identity, and most importantly, through awareness. Because once you become aware of your patterns, your thoughts, your identity, you gain something powerful: choice, the ability to change direction, not instantly, not perfectly, but intentionally. Now imagine your life again, not the past, not what you've done before, but from this moment forward. You begin to notice, you begin to question, you begin to act differently, and slowly, your identity begins to shift. You are no longer reacting, you are choosing, and that changes everything. Before we finish, take a moment. Think about one thing, just one. What is something you always tell yourself? Something like, I'm not good at this. I'm not disciplined. I always fail. Now ask yourself honestly, is that true? Or is it just a story you've repeated long enough to believe? Because the moment you question it, the moment you challenge it, you create space. And in that space, change becomes possible. Your life is not defined by what you have done. It is defined by what you decide to do next. And the difference between winners and losers is not visible at the start, but over time, it becomes everything. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Take care of yourself. Keep learning, keep growing, and see you in the next story.